Oh, hi guys. Welcome to another episode of Diminishing Returns, the podcast in which we discuss a film or franchise and then propose our own ideas for sequels. A very special episode this week as we take on a cult favourite that has found life as a midnight movie. It is, of course, The Room. Commonly referred to as one of the best, worst films ever made, The Room was a vanity project self-funded by Tommy Wiseau, a man as mysterious as his accent. It really is a film that defies explanation and needs to be seen to be believed. But if you've never seen The Room, then don't worry too much, because this episode is not exactly about the film itself, but more the man behind it. This is a fascinating story of when creative ambition and artistic talent do not match. This episode contains spoilers for everything Tommy Wiseau has ever been in. That pretty much makes it The Room and Best Friends. Enjoy!
Oh, hi, Alan.
Oh, hi, Saul.
Oh, hi, Calvin.
The test results came back. I definitely have breast cancer.
Oh, don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
You're my favourite customer.
We're just doing random quotes now.
This is going to be a tough one to get through, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, like we've talked about this offline, and I've sort of said before that I kind of don't want this just to be a series of badly done, badly impersonated quotations from the film, because I think we're better than that.
Because that's what
let's get them all out of our system.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Okay.
Look, it's Tommy Wiseau Bond. Ding dong. Okay, so yes, we're doing The Room.
It's a harrowing tale of a young boy who's born in a small confined space. His mother was kidnapped and repeatedly.
Saul, I'm going to have to stop you there. I'm afraid you've made a major error. We are not doing Room, as you appear to think. We're doing The Room by Tommy Wiseau.
Oh no!
Oh no! You've done the wrong research.
Oh dear.
So The Room is a harrowing tale of a madman who decided that if no one else would put him in a film, he'd make his own. God damn it! And that is the American dream. So fair play.
Yes. And the reason why we've gotten to this now is because there is a film coming out, a dramatization of the making of The Room called The Disaster Artist, starring James Franco.
An adaptation of the book of the same name by Greg Sestero. Is that how you say it?
Sestero, I think.
Yeah, and this is very interesting because I think it's going to be a good episode because we've got the film itself. There's a lot of talking points on that. And I think it's one of those things that's probably been talked about so much that we don't need to worry about that too much. But I'd definitely like to talk about, the making of it and Tommy Wiseau in general, because there's some very interesting things there. I'm kind of looking forward to watching The Disaster Artist because I think it's a really interesting story, very interesting character at its centre.
Yes.
What I've seen of the trailers, I'm not that convinced by, I will admit. But I've still got hope. And, Seth Rogen, James Franco, they know what they're doing, but my worry is that they are perhaps a little self-indulgent.
It's not just I think Seth Rogen's in it. I don't think he's that much to do with this one creatively. I think you're thinking of the sort of Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg partnership that's led to stuff like This Is the End.
This is just James Franco wanking himself off in front of a mirror.
Yeah, but I mean, number one, this film's already getting really good buzz from festival screenings and stuff. That's the biggest reason why I'm willing to believe it's great. It's meant to be more than just a joke, which is what it could have very easily been. It could have
that's what I'm hoping.
A comedy. Yeah. It's meant to be more of an Ed Wood style look at.
Well, and having read the book, The Disaster Artist, that's what I'm hoping for, because it is a really interesting story. I would recommend the book, in fact.
Oh yeah,
to
it's
anyone
great.
Who's a fan of The Room, and so I think there really is an interesting story there. and an interesting character
Yeah.
development. So I do hope they make the most of it. I'm sure they will, but it's just the
And
trailers
that's
perhaps
it.
are just focusing on, it's funny,
Well,
so which is fair enough, you know.
I think
Got
so
that.
far it's basically just, they are just kind of like, hey, have you guys seen or heard of this mad film, The Room? Well, we're doing a film about that. Lol.
Well,
And I
that's
think
it.
there's probably more
As
to
much
it.
as it is a cult favourite, it is a cult favourite, not a mainstream thing. So, yeah, I guess they've got to just sell it as a comedy. So, let's go back to the actual original film, The Room.
Yes.
Which, for the uninitiated, it kind of has to be seen to be believed, because if I try and give a plot synopsis, it's not going to sound like anything interesting. Plus, I think in summation, I'd probably make it make more sense than it does.
Is that possible?
Like broad strokes, what is the plot? There's a guy in love with a woman, she's cheating on him.
With his best friend.
And
that causes
that
a lot of
comes out,
ruptions
and then he kills himself. Spoiler alert.
I mean, that's like the main
really
plot thread, but there's all these weird subplots about their neighbour, Denny, who's this young lad who's got involved in drugs, and then there's the woman's mum who has cancer, and there's other people popping in and out. They're playing football a lot outside.
Well, you say subplots as if they go somewhere.
No. Actually, there are other scenes.
More apt word.
There are other scenes in between the. I mean, it really is just a short film that has these non sequitur scenes spliced in, and so many scenes are just repetitive. There are a lot of scenes of the girlfriend character just babbling on to her mum about how she's not in love with Johnny anymore. Yeah, Tommy Wiseau plays Johnny, and
there's a lot of quite gratuitous sex scenes as well.
Yes.
Gratuitous in the sense that they don't need to be there, and they go on far longer than anyone could possibly want.
Well, again, I think that, because I read The Disaster Artist as well, and I think it's an essential companion piece to The Room, because it can't give rational reasoning for any of the bizarre decisions and scenes in the film, but it does give... It hints at sort of where germs of ideas maybe came from and got into Tommy Wiseau's head, and maybe that's why it appears in the film as it does.
In terms of the auteur theory, I mean, this is the product of one mind, this film. It is an artistic vision. I mean, albeit a mad one, but it is a reflection of Tommy Wiseau and of his subconscious, and perhaps in a way that even he isn't aware of. And the book really brings that out, and it's very nicely structured in that sense.
And we should say, I suppose, for anyone listening who doesn't know what The Room is, I mean, the big thing we haven't mentioned yet is that it's famously one of the worst films ever made.
Yes.
You look up a list of the worst films ever made, it's almost certainly going to be on there. There's a good chance it'll be number one.
It's like Troll 2, Birdemic.
Manos, The Hands of Fate. I've just looked it up, and it's not currently on IMDb's bottom 100 films of all time.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like I can imagine why people would rate it well, because if you want me to talk about like some of the best cinema experiences I've had in my life, both times that I've seen this with an audience in a cinema, it's been wonderful. The whole thing's been absolutely hilarious. Try watching it by yourself; it's really dull and doesn't work at all. It's a classic midnight movie, I suppose.
I made a similar kind of the opposite note kind of thing. Like, if you have only watched this at the cinema with that experience, I would recommend just sitting down and watching it, because you really get the detail of just how bad it is. Like, you can really appreciate it without the distractions. Like, because there's so many other like lines and plot elements that you miss. It is even worse than you think it is. And so it's worth sitting down and watching it just for the experience, I think.
Oh, I've tried. I haven't been able to do it. Like, more than 20 minutes, I just can't
it's not
do
easy
it.
To do.
Yeah.
I know that you and I saw it together for the first time, Calvin. Were you with us, Alan?
I was, yes.
Okay, so all three of us saw it. Wow, is that a first for this show, that we all went to see the film together?
Maybe.
No, I'm sure we've had this conversation before where it was something else, and we said, that's the first time.
We must have seen a Harry Potter together or something.
No.
But yeah, so all three of us went to a screening of the film, and
about 2010, do you think? 2011, something like that?
Yeah, and I would say that is the way to, certainly for the first time, experience this film. They handed out plastic spoons on entry and little like pamphlets explaining how to watch the film. And do you remember the rules? That there was something like whenever a spoon is on screen, throw your spoons at the cinema screen.
Yes,
every time the establishing shots of San Francisco pop up, you had to shout "Meanwhile" in San Francisco. There were a whole load of drinking game style rules to it, and I made a point of having a few drinks before I went in. I don't know about you two, but it's certainly it was certainly that kind of an experience, and it was great, really great fun.
But even beyond the like sort of like the games that they give you in the pamphlet and whatever, just like general comments that people would shout out from the audience would like really add to the experience. And normally that's a dreadful thing to happen in a cinema. And then obviously there were a couple of groaners, but for the most part, I remember people were being quite witty with what they were shouting out. And
like you say, it's a great experience. And it's fun, and you shout things at the screen and stuff like that. But I'm not that keen on fun in people, and I really just like, so when I went to see it this last time, it did just wind me up a little bit, and one of the main things was obviously people shout at the screen and stuff, but there was one guy particularly throwing out a lot of gags, a lot of lines, and getting laughs and stuff like that. But it was like, don't do this as if you're like Mystery Science Theater, like comedy genius. You've seen this film loads of times. You've been to the screenings and seen other people shouting. And he's just like, I can imagine him sitting there desperately waiting for the thing. Oh, I know what my next line's going to be. I know what it is. And it's
but that's what watching Mystery Science Theater's like as well.
Yeah, all right. What I mean? I use that as a reference point, just as like original material.
I bet he was funnier than they are.
But my point is that it wasn't his material. It wasn't his gags. It wasn't like he was like seeing something and reacting and going, "Oh, I've got a good line about that." But he kept shouting out like he was a fucking comedy genius, and it was winding me up.
Look at pictures of spoons, much?
Exactly. I mean, that's the level we were talking about. And just whenever I see a group of people kind of all laughing at the same thing, I just think, what a bunch of twats.
Does that just go for this film or just everything?
No, anything where I think it's not funny. I could hear him winding up, like ready to say something, like he couldn't wait to get out because he knew he had to get it out before one of the other 30 people said it, because they've all been to the screening loads of times and knew all the lines as well.
Yeah, I never really thought of it like that. But yeah, I remember like, when I saw The Prince Charles, there was one guy who, he was very funny, mind, and there wasn't, there were a couple of groaners at certain points, but if someone shouted out something and then didn't get much of a laugh, they were just very quiet and didn't say anything again. Whereas,
I love that bit.
But you guys saw it in London, and there's gonna like half the cinema's gonna be like aspiring stand-up comedians who want to like promote their podcast with.
It is right next door to a comedy club, isn't it? There's a comedy club next door,
and that's. I'm so glad I saw it in one of the smaller screenings, to be honest, because I would hate that kind of prepared lines and people who've seen it before. And I would guess when we saw it that it was the first viewing for 90% plus of the people.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. We were just at the start of that sort of coming over to England, I would say, especially that kind of a screening. I know it had been going on in LA from like the mid-noughties onwards, but I think it only really broke out in sort of 2009, 2010 in England anyway.
And plus, like, just the simple thing of, like, they did a Q&A at the beginning. Okay, the guys weren't really interested anyway. But the people asking the questions are just like, it's like, there's 10 people there, maybe one of you actually got an interesting question.
Yeah, that always annoys me.
And they're just like, oh, what's it like working with Tommy Wiseau?
Oh, God, I hate it.
Is he as mad in real life as you think he is?
That does my nut in. Oh, God.
But they think they're so funny and clever as well, and they're like looking at their mates like going, hey, I'm asking a question.
And there's people who just want to interact with the person. And it's even worse when they just ask what's your most embarrassing moment? Just like, fucking hell, ask something interesting. Like, we can
try and ask a question that will get an answer, an interesting answer, not just the same old shit. But anyway, so other people annoying.
Well, I had a couple of great screenings anyway, but I think the Leeds one was the better one, probably because it was sort of fresher then. And
yeah. So Tommy Wiseau basically raised an obscene amount of money to make his passion project. I mean, you guys will know better than I do because you've read this book, but my understanding is he was pissing around in the kind of drama scene, Amdram, trying to make it as an actor and a director and stuff for a while. Eventually, raised enough money through his own businesses and stuff, not through investors like you generally would raise money for a film, and just made it because no one else would give him the money to do it more conventionally.
From the book, the impression I got was not that he had to go and fight and raise the money. He had the money. Where from, nobody knows. But he had the money. The only difference was him going, fuck it, I'm going to make a film then, and deciding to spend the money. And now that might have been a big decision to, like, who knows how much money he's got, that he can just drop that kind of... Like, because basically, what the number that's usually thrown out there is $6 million.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a well spent either. You know, it wasn't. Like,
that's
it wasn't
it.
Sensibly spent. So this is a like a $400,000 film.
Yes.
$6 million budget.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it. Most films like this would cost, like you say, about 400,000, something like that. They would be really cheap and therefore a lot more excusable, I suppose. Certainly to a point, because, you know, you can't expect the same sort of thing from them. The fact that this film cost that much, allegedly, is flabbergasting. And it's because, like you say, it wasn't spent well. One of the big stories that is often touted up is that it was shot simultaneously on HD and film at the same time.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, that's as good as going to double your budget working at those levels. And they just did it because Tommy Wiseau didn't understand the difference between the two.
But it's not that... But the thing is, like, he had to have a special rig, like, made to hold both cameras at the same time. Like, he had to have things specially made to facilitate this. So it's not like no one said anything. It's not like he was doing this and everyone just went, oh, let's just leave him to it.
Yeah.
It was questioned and he went, no, I'm doing it this way. Fuck off.
Yeah, the impression that you get from the book is that the crew around him are actually like, they you know, some of them were professionals and working on, you know, TV and good short films and that kind of stuff. And there are people around him sort of trying to reason with him and understand his reasoning and just not getting anywhere with it.
Just to give a bit more backstory to Tommy Wiseau, he has a vaguely European accent. No one really knows where he's from. The general idea seems to be that he was born like behind the Iron Curtain and struggled his way out and had a very difficult young life, and so then went to America and fell in love with America, where he was able to kind of do anything and find his fortune. And he's a big believer in the American dream and all that. And he is a very proud American. So that's kind of his story. But he's some kind of businessman. He owns property in like a substantial amount of money. Nobody really knows why or how. But he's got money from somewhere. He wants to be an actor. He's a very bad actor. He goes to acting classes and
his style of acting is utterly unique. It's
it's not just bad acting, is it? It's more to it than that.
That's the thing. There's bad acting where, you know, there's acting where it doesn't quite ring true. There's bad acting where, you know, it's just completely lifeless and emotionless, and the person isn't emoting. But Tommy Wiseau, it's neither of those really. It's not on that usual level of acting spectrum. It's its own thing. It's like he's emoting it like an old children's cartoon. But then that seems to be how he talks, just normally. Like, he kind of talks like this everywhere.
If you actually see him speak and the way he behaves, his acting makes a lot more sense. It is much more of a true reflection in that sense.
And that's the thing. Like, he's actually doing quite a good performance of how he is.
Unfortunately, he is not like anyone else.
But he just kind of talks like not a real human being. He kind of is... It's bizarre. He is just utterly alien.
I mean, he does. He delivers the lines as if he doesn't speak English and he's learned the words by rote. So he's saying the words, the emphasis in the wrong places. There's no kind of meaning behind any of it. That's how he pronounces it. But he does speak English, theoretically.
He seems to be. Well, he seems to be very fluent in English, but
sometimes
questionably, yeah.
When I went to a screening and they did a Q&A, him and Greg Sestero were there, the impression I got from that was that maybe he doesn't speak English because he certainly wasn't sort of responding to any of the questions in the sense that he'd understood them in any real sense. It's when you know when you do that thing where you talk to a computer and it doesn't quite understand, but it'll pick up a keyword or something.
Oh yeah, but
so you'll say, "Oh, do you want a cup of coffee?" And it goes, "Coffee is a hot beverage favoured in many countries," and it's like it'll pick up on a word and then just go off on a tangent.
Like
on
Smarter Child back in the day.
You know, actually, Alan, I was wanting to ask you about this later on, but maybe now's a good time, because I also went to the same cinema that you did about a year earlier and saw The Room with a Q&A with Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, the Prince Charles in Leicester Square does it quite regularly.
Yes.
They show the film regularly, and because it's London and not some like podunk Hyde Park cinema, it's they can actually get people to come and do personal appearances.
Well, when I went there, it was just Tommy. It wasn't Greg Sestero. He wasn't there. But the Q&A, it wasn't so much a Q&A so much as it was like people were like queuing up and they're asking like really like stupid questions like, why were you fucking that woman in the belly button and not in the vagina? Do you not know where it is? And that kind of stuff. And Tommy's like saying, yeah, guys, come on, we got the movie to see, come on, and like just saying all these like things just to hurry up. That he's like giving one word answers. He's like, yep, keep going. And then there was this one question that got asked, and I, for the life of me, can't remember what it was, but it obviously like really intrigued him, and he gave like this really like long sort of anecdotal answer to it, and it was sort of like, oh, whoa, that's really I think it was a semi-serious question about the production or something, and he was just very frankly answering it. And I don't know if he was just taken aback to be getting a serious question rather than just someone taking
but there you go. See,
I
I can completely buy that he's sick of just people like heckling him in the form of a question at a Q&A, and he just kind of goes, yeah, right, next one. And then when someone says, "What are your cinematic influences? What, you know, who would you say is the greatest auteur? And do you feel like you follow?" You know, it's something that gets him thinking, and he wants to talk about, and I can totally buy it when it comes to life. But
yeah, I wanna talk about my experience of going to see the film because well, funnily enough, I went to see it a few weeks back, and it was I guess they were showing it. You know, the disasterpiece is coming out, so it's a lot of interest at the moment. Anyway, so. My experience at this more recent screening, is similar there with you, Calvin. Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau were there. Both of them looked like they really didn't want to be there and would rather be dead. But they were dealing with it in different ways. Greg Sestero was just shut down. He had a 1,000-yard stare. Didn't say.
Oh,
anything.
really?
Yeah, definitely. And like this was like the fourth night they'd done or whatever, and I mean he had the mad eyes of someone who spent too much time with Tommy Wiseau. Basically, that's this kind of dead stare.
I assume they duck out once the film starts and just go and have a kebab or something. Yeah.
But they were doing all the basically you could get your picture taken with them. I bought the book because I hadn't read the book, so I thought I'll buy that. They signed it. And weirdly enough, the book is written by Greg Sestero and a guy called Tom Bissell, who is obviously like the guy who could actually write.
Yes.
So Greg Sestero's got the stories, Tom Bissell's put it together, and weirdly, because it says on the title page where they sign it, it says Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell, and Greg Sestero signed his name and then dashed a line through where his name is printed, like he crossed it out and signed it.
Oh.
I don't know why particularly, but then Tommy Wiseau signed it and crossed out Tom Bissell. I don't really know what that means.
That sounds like Greg Sestero did it as a kind of like a little joke. Like, look, instead of having your name printed, I'll write it out by hand for you in your book, so it says, you know, just like a little jokey thing to do. And then Tommy Wiseau saw it. And in his kind of alien mind of just like
that's it.
Digesting human culture and not quite getting it, he thought, "Oh, this must be how humans interact with each other. I'll do this." The thing is,
though, this must be like the 10,000th time they've signed a book together. It's not. It wasn't the first thing. But no, he's given me a little message here, and I'm not sure what it says. I think it says, "Love is what's loves." I think I'll take a picture of it. We can put it up on the Facebook or something.
Can you send us a picture now so we can attempt to decipher it live on air?
Possibly. Hang on.
What did you say? Love is what loves.
Love is what's love. I'm pretty sure there's an apostrophe S in there. Okay, it should be sending on the Facebook thing now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's... So, 2 : Alan. So that's Greg Sestero at the top. And then Tommy Wiseau crossed out Tom Bissell and put Love Heart, Tommy W. But then, right, Love... So that's definitely Love Is.
Do you know what? I'm thinking now... I'm assuming what happened with it, they struck the line out, but I wasn't looking that closely as one signed it and passed it to the other. I think probably Greg Sestero signed it over his name and then crossed out Tom Bissell. So then Tommy Wiseau signed it and crossed out Greg Sestero.
Oh.
Would that make more sense? That would make more sense, wouldn't it?
That would make more sense. Are you sure Greg Sestero didn't just cross them both out?
No, definitely they did one each, because that's what kind of my mind saw. Like what? But then that means Greg Sestero crossed out Tom Bissell, which is that a big fuck you to that guy?
If that's what happened, that's a huge fuck you to Tom Bissell. That's him basically saying, Tom Bissell didn't write this, I wrote this.
Yeah.
And then Tommy Wiseau's crossed out Greg Sestero like, you're nothing without me, mate.
Exactly.
Did they have... I'm poirotting this right now. Did they have different pens? Because the brushstroke on Greg Sestero's signature looks slightly faded and not as prominent as Tommy Wiseau's, as does the strike through Greg Sestero's own name. So I'm deducing, in my Murder, She Wrote circumstantial logic, that Greg Sestero did in fact cross out his own name.
I mean, honestly, I'm not sure now. I'm sort of questioning myself. But what they both crossed out one line each, definitely.
This does look like Love is what loves. Love apostrophe S at the end.
Yeah. But I think there's the what as an apostrophe S as well. Maybe.
Yeah, it does look too.
Love is
anyway.
What loves.
I mean, that makes sense to Tommy Wiseau, so...
That is true, yeah. But I'm intrigued by this Greg Sestero having some beef with his ghostwriter who ultimately got a credit on the book.
Wait a minute. I think we've just made this up now through...
I mean, it was speculative. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, just
if it's not
speculative,
true,
and now it's a scoop.
If it's not true, they should come on the show and refute it. I think
or sue us.
I think it's true. All the evidence is there.
Well,
anyway,
so I mean, at no point did I see Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau interact. Looked like they enjoyed each other's company. Looked like they could bear to be. It was like a divorced couple, like at their children's nativity play.
Did they say anything to you when you were there?
Yeah, I mean, well, Greg Sestero just said, "Oh, what's your name?" Oh, there you go, thanks. When he was doing the Q&A, Greg Sestero sort of stood at the back of the stage and didn't really say anything. And Tommy Wiseau took the lead. And so someone would come up and go, yeah, when you were making the film, is there anything, why did you do this, blah, blah, blah. And he'd go, yeah, I mean, we did the film, it's here, we're going to watch it, okay? Oh, by the way, I love you all, okay, thank you. Like, there was no content. The only thing he actually answered specifically that I can think of was, someone said, if you did it again, would you do anything differently? He said, I wouldn't shoot it on 2 cameras. So... and then he did like 20 press-ups on stage to prove that he was like a fit young man.
What?
He must be like
really?
60 now or something.
No, because
are you joking? Did he really do that?
No, someone said, "Oh, Tommy, like how do you keep in such good shape?" And he was like, "I do 20 press-ups every morning. Hey, I'll do it now for you. Okay, I love you all." And he gets down, he does 20 press-ups. And then he's like, "Oh, hey, thank you, by the way, because now I don't need to do exercise today. Thank you. I love you."
It sounds much more jovial at yours than he didn't mind. He was quite, he didn't seem very pleased.
It very much felt like he was trying to get off, but he appreciated he had to do a job. Like, he had to, okay, I have to be a clown for 10, like, what's the minimum? 12 minutes I'll give you. Let's get off.
Right, okay.
And Greg Sestero wasn't even bothered about that. The screening I went to was also a double bill. The second film was a screening of a film called Best Friends, which is
a
new film. So this was a film written by Greg Sestero.
Greg Sestero or Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell?
Who he hates.
To Greg Sestero.
He's going around every single poster of the film scribbling his name out madly because he hates him. Greg Sestero hates Tom Bissell.
They've got some real beef going. It's a feud.
So yeah, it's written by Greg Sestero, and certainly from the way he told it, he wrote the role for Tommy Wiseau. He said, I wanted to write something that embraced his talent and use it.
I'm sick of doing screenings of The Room. I wanted to produce something else we could cash in on for a while.
Yeah, basically. And it's obviously very low budget, and it's the director was there as well. He answered a couple of questions, but didn't really have anything to say because nobody knew what it was, so nobody had any relevant questions, you know?
Oh, did they do a Q&A before it was shown then, not after?
Yeah, well, it was an introduction, really. Well, actually, to be honest with you, Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero went up there to kind of intro it, and Tommy Wiseau dragged the director and producer up on the stage because they were like, hey, they're here, let's get them up on stage.
Right.
They didn't really have anything to say, and nobody knew anything about it except that the Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau were in it.
Well, this is the thing. I'm surprised Tommy Wiseau hasn't transitioned into being more of an actor than he has, as in...
well, there's one very good reason why not.
Well, yeah, but you'd think all the low budget, like Jason Mewes and Ted Raimi, you'd think all the low budget horror movies out there would just be like saying, "Tommy, come do a scene in our film; it'll be hilarious."
Yeah.
I think it'd be a nightmare to work with, though. Like from what I read in the book, it sounds like he'd be genuinely difficult, and maybe he wouldn't even want to do it.
But that's the thing. That's him as a director. I'm sure he wouldn't be that bad if it was him as an actor. But at the same time, he probably doesn't want to do it. He probably does see it as beneath him. If he doesn't need the money, which I guess if he's financed a $6 million film off his own back, he probably doesn't. He has done a few, though. Like, he did pop up. He did a weird little horror short film for some people at Adult Swim that I haven't seen, but I think was like a real weird spoof. He did a web series that Alan and I used to watch episodes of every now and then where he'd what was it? It was like the idea was an alien had abducted him and made him play video games, and it was just him in a booth being handed a video game controller and just being like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to win at this game," and then he'd die and he'd be like, "Alien, you have beaten me. This is bullshit. Why are you beating me, alien?" It was just that for like 15 minutes. And you really got the sense that they had just kind of let the camera roll and kind of constructed a show around him. But like, there's a few little projects like that have managed to involve him, and I'm surprised there isn't more of it. You'd think you'd think he'd be in Sharknado 4, you know?
He does have an ego. He does seem to think...
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I'm doing this properly. I'm not a clown. I'm not just a chimp to dance for you. But he is.
But then it's weird, like I say, that he's managed, like that he has popped up in anything like that. And I suppose this Best Friends thing is Greg Sestero's project. Partly, he probably, like I'm sure Greg and that lot thought, well, this is a marketing thing. We'll get Tommy Wiseau in. It'll be funny, but Tommy probably thought my friends are making a film and I'm going to be in it because this is what we do. We make films together. So I can understand that one. Yeah, I don't know. So what was it like? What was it?
Well, essentially the premise is there's a man played by Greg Sestero who we don't get any backstory for him, but he's on the streets. And I think in the opening scene he's bleeding and stuff, like he's been...
Yeah, I've seen the trailer and it's, I think, just him bleeding on a road and it doesn't really explain anything.
That's essentially the opening of the film. And then he goes and he's wandering the streets and he's going past this place as a hearse pulls into like a garage and Tommy Wiseau gets out. Well, the character played by Tommy Wiseau. And he goes, hey mate, come and help me with this. And he gets him to help him take the coffin out. And so based on that, and then he goes, look, do you want some work? I've got work if you want it. And he goes, okay. And that's how they meet, right? So then you've got Tom Wiseau, who is a mortician, but so specifically he makes like face masks for people, like that people who they want an open casket, but they look like a dead body, and so he makes them look nice.
Okay.
That's what he does. And then so
Yeah,
Greg Sestero's
that's
helping him out.
There's an Oscar-winning film about that called Departures, is it? Was ripe for making a quirky little indie film about, certainly.
But that's just the premise that they meet. And then the story basically goes that... So this is Greg Sestero's character. He's kind of getting back on his feet. He's earning a bit of money. Like he rents a place. He meets this girl and he starts dating. But then at the same time, he's building this relationship with Tommy Wiseau. And then he discovers that Tommy Wiseau has got this huge stash of like gold teeth. Because when he's dealing with the bodies, he removes all the gold teeth.
And he sells them in and finances a glory project movie.
So basically, he's been a mortician for years and years and years, and he's collected all these gold teeth, and he's got tanks and tanks of gold teeth. And so the Greg Sestero character basically gets in touch with someone who will buy the gold to refine it back into gold. They're selling this gold, and then it becomes this kind of intrigue of like, who's backstabbing who? They're going to steal the money from each other, blah blah blah. So it's like that basically. It's not a bad film, like in terms of a quirky little indie film. It's fine, and it's very much raised by the presence of Tommy Wiseau because he is such a character. It's like it's something you couldn't write. You couldn't write a character that interesting, and the way he reacts to people. And it's a much more tamed performance than in The Room. It's interesting to watch as a Tommy Wiseau enthusiast, as we all are, because it is him like doing proper acting, and he's still not a good actor, but it is much more subdued, and he's kind of calmer, and he has this, because it's just the two of them on screen a lot of the time, and because they have this long history, I think that comes through it. It's quite interesting to watch. I think Tommy Wiseau might have had a bit of face work done now.
Really?
His mouth doesn't look like... Well, it doesn't look like a mouth, but it doesn't look like it used to.
I mean, we haven't really mentioned yet, but should we just point out, if anyone hasn't seen The Room, like he doesn't look like a well man in that
What are you talking about? He's ripped!
Yeah, but look at his face. He looks like...
He's very pale. The book alludes to him having some kind of skin condition or certainly some kind of aversion to sunlight.
But that's because he claims to be a vampire.
But he looks like a vampire. He looks like if Michael Jackson hadn't died and had started taking testosterone to kind of be less feminine.
No, I think if you made a film in like 1987 that was an adaptation of an Anne Rice novel and you had a sexy vampire in it, and then like 25 years later you met the same guy, that's what he looks like.
Yeah.
Like the sort of addled, sexy vampire. But he's like still trying to do the same look. He desperately wants to be young. Like he desperately wants to be young. I think even when they were making The Room in the book, he sort of claims he's 28 or something. He's clearly about 42, and looks like he's had a hard life. And the suggestion is that he has. He's come from a difficult place. There's talk in the book of a couple of car accidents that he's sort of badly fucked him up, and so he may have like had physical injuries that ended up spending ages in hospital and stuff like that. So he's got like a kind of weary face. It's not a youthful, energized face. The book, it doesn't quite imply, but there's a suggestion that Tommy Wiseau could be gay and that his money has come from knowing older gentlemen and being the younger companion of older gentlemen in his younger days, and that's how he kind of ended up with a lot of money, or someone left him some money or something like that. Did you what did you take from it, Calvin? Because it certainly didn't say that, and it kind of hinted at it a couple of times, and there's certainly an implication that he's gay, right?
Oh yeah, I definitely got that. I mean, I don't know how much of that is just me reading into, like, why would he even want to be friends with this Greg Sestero guy? And he's just this, like, young 20-year-old.
It's an extremely homoerotic film, The Room. We should mention that, I suppose.
Is it?
Yeah.
How?
Tommy Wiseau's arse.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Well, Tommy Wiseau's arse. Tommy Wiseau befriending this younger man and playing catch with him. They run around chucking a ball together. There's loads of like bromance in there.
Again, this kind of analysis comes through the book somewhat, but the implication is what Tommy Wiseau was trying to create on screen was his idea of what his life should be. That is, he's young, he's sexy, he's got great arms, he hangs out with his mates, they have jokes and they play football, and the thing that ruins that is a woman. And like that's it's kind of like that is the central tenet of this. And the only thing that's wrong in Johnny's life is the woman. Everything else is all right. You know, it's like and there's a story in the book where they're filming the alleyway scene where they're just tossing a football around, and everyone was saying, "Tommy, why are we shooting this? It's not even relevant to, even by your standards, it's not relevant." and all he was doing was looking at the monitor, going, "Oh, look how great my arms are! I look so young." And like all he was interested in was being this young, sexy guy playing with his like playing football with his mates and just having a laugh and talking about women. And it's like that, and and that's what came through the book for me, was that Tommy Wiseau was trying to create the life he never had on film. But then the story he created was one of, obviously he knew he had to put some drama in it, and the turmoil he created was a woman betraying him. So,
interesting reading, yeah.
It would be very interesting to get an honest account out of him, of his life, of his story, because what must have gone on after when he made this film, and he genuinely thought that he was making something great, and all he had to do was make it, and then people would see how great he was. They never gave him a chance, so he was going to do it himself, and he was going to create this great American masterpiece like The Great Gatsby. It falls completely flat, and then finds life as a joke. And I wonder how you go through that, like how he dealt with that. Because again, in the book, it does seem like he has sort of emotional troubles, you know? Like, the film itself was kind of born out of a period of depression.
Yeah.
In which he kind of invigorated himself by deciding he was going to create his own thing. When I watched the film, I thought it's kind of the obvious thing to do here, and what everybody does when they talk about The Room, is talk about all the shit things. So what I tried to do was pull some positives out of it, which I'll drop some at you, and then you know.
How many have you found positives?
Well, for example, the first thing I put a note of is like it's not shying away from social taboos such as voyeurism in young men, as we see with Denny, as he wants to. Denny, who is I think he's supposed to be 18. 18.
Oh no, he's younger than that, isn't he?
Lisa said something like, when he turned 18, Johnny started paying for his college or something like that. It specifically says when he turned 18, as in the past tense. So he must be at least 18.
I always thought he was, maybe it's just because of how he's the character. He behaves like a 12-year-old or, you know.
But that's it. Because of Tommy Wiseau's writing style, it's hard to judge what anyone is, what their motivations are. But his character's introduced. We have Tommy and Lisa, who are a couple, and this character of Denny just walks in, and then when they go upstairs to have sex, he follows to watch. That's the opening scene, basically, of the film. That's like your introduction to the world of The Room.
It's handled in a very sort of almost warm way, if that's possible. It's like it's
like a sitcom.
He behaves like this like little kid, just being like, "Oh, I love to watch."
It's like they go, "Denny."
It's like if a dog followed you in and was watching you having sex, and you'll have to go, "Oh God, I can't do this. I'm gonna have to put him outside."
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's very peculiar.
So this is one of the positives you've pulled up, is it?
Well, I'm just saying, I was trying to find things, you know, it's railing against mainstream cinema. It's not shying away from these difficult topics.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, it's not exploring it in any way. But...
I mean, I honestly, I can think of maybe one redeeming positive in the film, and that is that, I mean, Tommy Wiseau, as dreadful an actor as he is an inherently likeable presence. I'll give him that. Do you not think?
Okay. Not really.
I don't think of him like James Stewart as a likable.
No, but he's endearing. I mean, maybe it's because he's such a weird sort of underdog. What is going on? He is a bit like a puppy. Do you not think?
No, I don't find him all that appealing. Really, I find him interesting, but not. Yeah, when I think of appealing, I think of like Jennifer Tilly or I don't know.
I think Tommy Wiseau's warmer and friendlier in how he comes across than Jennifer Tilly.
God,
Jennifer Tilly's like talented and good, but Tommy Wiseau might help you move house if you asked. You know,
I don't think he would. I think he would offer to help, and then you'd be like waiting for him to show up on the day, and then he'd turn up like 5 hours late and move you to the wrong house.
Okay, yeah, maybe. But Jennifer Tilly would just be like, "Who the fuck are you?" and just like walk off and put a cigarette out on you.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, that's what we want there. Here's another positive I tried to take from the film. It doesn't adhere to the sort of unrealistic beauty standards that Hollywood tries to do.
No, it fucking doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, Greg Sestero is an attractive man.
Yeah.
In that classic Hollywood way.
Well, the running story of the book is Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau meeting and becoming friends. So they meet in an acting class. They're at the same level, right? And Tommy Wiseau helps Greg Sestero move to LA. He says, "I've got an apartment. You can stay there. Keep it cheap." And then suddenly Greg Sestero, like, because he's a sexy young man, he's getting meetings. He's got his foot in the door. And Tommy Wiseau has this sort of immediate jealousy. And you see the process of how he ended up making the film, because Greg Sestero gets a SAG card, the actors union. He gets in the union.
Yeah.
And Tommy Wiseau is sort of jealous of this. He says, like, "Well, how do I get a SAG card? How can I get a SAG card?" And he goes, "Well, if you're like the lead in an advert, that's a good enough credit to get one." And so then, like 2 months later, Tommy Wiseau shows him, "Oh, I've got a SAG card." He's like, "How did you get that?" He says, "I was leading an advert." And Tommy Wiseau just made an advert, and he financed an advert and put himself in it.
I mean,
and then went to SAG and said, "Hey, look, I've done an advert. Can I have a SAG card?" And that is an obvious first step to where you go to making your own film, because no one else will put you in one.
But that's the thing. Like, if I had the money to do that, I don't think I'd waste any time not making my own film to begin with.
Well, I think that's a bit of a bigger gamble, isn't it? Putting $6 million into something.
Yeah, to be honest, if I had $6 million, I'd probably just like retire and live off my $6 million for the rest of my life.
So, what are the positives do you have about the film, Alan?
Well, we were talking about the standard, the Hollywood standards of beauty, and how this does not conform with them, because they were putting real people on screen. Yeah, and we got distracted by talking about how sexy Greg Sestero was. But everyone else in the film,
and they're not even like interesting faces. It's not like The Office where, you know, they kind of go the other direction and everyone's weird looking, but like you kind of think, "Oh wow, this is a character." They're all just kind of just dumpy looking normal people.
And Tommy Wiseau himself is a very odd looking man, as we've said. He's got long hair as well that's kind of suspiciously dark. And kind of not styled in any nice way. It's just sort of thrown back. And so he looks kind of like, well, he looks messy as well. But then, okay, so let's talk about Lisa.
Tommy Wiseau is visually striking, for the record. I'll leave him out of this. It's everyone else who's kind of... Yeah, so, Lisa...
Lisa is the lead female, and she... what's the name of the girl who plays her?
Juliette Danielle.
Who's not... She was an unknown. She'd come from, what was it, Texas or somewhere like... So, she was straight off the bus. Like, she'd gone to LA to try and make it. I don't know if you remember, Calvin. I think the story was basically Tommy Wiseau. The girls who were auditioning, like he'd make them like get off with him as part of like the auditioning process. Like,
oh no,
the scene.
Is this going to be the next big Hollywood scandal? Tommy Wiseau.
But because she just went at it with relish rather than like shying away from it. She got the part. I mean, that was pretty much what it said, wasn't it?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Because she was basically willing to go all in on the sex scenes and stuff like that. So,
well, you've got it. Yeah. It's a film where, you know, about 60% of the screen time for that role is fucking Tommy Wiseau and getting off with him and his ass thrusting away. So,
So okay, let's talk about her. She's a very kind of normal looking person. And unfortunately, in a film, that comes across as TV ugly.
No,
which is,
I mean, it doesn't work because we're supposed to buy her as this sexualized like object of desire for all the men in there.
She's meant to be a real like femme fatale, like you'd get in the 40s.
Yes.
And
Yeah, she's always wearing dresses and furrowing a brow and raising eyebrows
and to say she's not a particularly great actor, I think she plays it well. She goes at it with enthusiasm. She never falters, and like in terms of what she should be doing for the character, she's doing it. And with a better director, perhaps she could have do something.
Well, this is something I don't think it's fair to judge anyone's performance in this film other than Tommy's, to be honest, because what material were they given? What the hell was the direction? Like, what was going on set? I could buy anyone in this film was actually a capable actor in the right hands and just not like...
The atmosphere on set was very much of like, why are any of us bothering? So they weren't trying that hard. I mean, Greg Sestero particularly, I mean, you can literally see it in his face. He's like, just wants to die. He just doesn't want to be there anymore. And some of his scenes... you can just see how little energy he's putting into them.
The thing is, they were all getting paid quite well for the level of film that this was.
Well, that's the only reason anyone was there. Certainly it wasn't a passion project for anyone apart from Tommy.
Yeah.
There's a story in the book where Tommy Wiseau's auditioning process was basically going up to someone and go, "You just won $1 million, go!" And then they had they would go, "I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm here for an audition." And he'd go, "You're rubbish, get out, you must react immediately." And then, which is why the actors who got cast are the ones that would go, "Oh my God, $1 million, that's amazing." Like that kind of acting. So that might explain some of the casting choices. Okay, what about this? This film treats cancer with the disdain that it deserves. Don't give it any respect. The first battle is the psychological one. Act as if you're going to beat it, and you will beat it.
This is a positive?
Yeah, it's showing, have a positive mental attitude towards your cancer and it'll help.
Yeah, don't even worry about it.
Just say, don't worry, the medical advances are great these days, you're going to beat it. In fact, don't even mention it again.
Exactly. It's like, you don't be scared of terrorists, because otherwise they've won. Same thing with cancer. You just get on with your life.
But they don't, because then they just go back to talking about how Lisa's pissed off with Johnny. And then she's really inconsistent, because sometimes she hates him, sometimes she likes him, and I don't know if that's intentional, if that's supposed to be like a conflicted character trait that she herself doesn't like him, but then she can't bear to hear other people bad-mouthing him.
Well, here's another thing. You know how I rail against sort of normality and the sort of oppressive system that tells us how to live our lives?
Yeah.
Really?
That we're supposed to have a set format of have a relationship, have a family, work yourself to death. Well, this is why I like Lisa. She's railing against this. She is, everyone around her, and especially her mother, is saying, you need to find a stable man who can find
Yeah, but Alan,
security.
she's the villain.
And she's like, no, I do not love her.
Yeah, but
I do not love him.
That's not portrayed as a positive quality. It's portrayed as villainous behaviour.
That's why she's having to fight against the system.
No, her fighting the system is portrayed as villainous behaviour.
I don't even think it's against the system. I just think she's, I don't even know. She's psychotic, isn't she?
Well, I'm trying to find the positives in this.
Well, I think you've just found another negative.
No, because I'm spinning it on its head.
It's sort of like saying that Michael Myers is rallying against the, social
conditioning,
conformities by knifing people to death.
Yeah, but all she wants to do is leave this guy that she no longer loves, and no one will let her do it.
She's not mature enough to break up with him, yeah.
Well, that's another question I had, because at one point at the end, she said they've been together for 7 years. But she's only like 22. Like, what's that? He's at least 20 years older.
Well, yeah, but obviously Tommy Wiseau's character is also only 22 years old, so it was fine.
And yet he's incredibly successful in his work, apparently. What is he? He's a banker or something in the film,
Well, he works for a bank.
Oh, okay.
And he makes them money. But we don't know how. But yeah, Lisa is a dominant, sexually powerful woman. Like this is why people don't like her, because society isn't ready for her.
Yeah, like that's great, but again, she's the villain of the film, and the film portrays that as a negative thing. The film is not presenting her as a strong, like, female character to aspire to.
That's the way you're seeing it. I think Johnny is the villain. He's
really?
Yeah, he's he's got this woman that he controls. He's losing control over her. She's starting to become too independent. His job isn't going where he wanted it to, so he starts drinking. He hits her. Like, why are we supposed to be on his side?
He doesn't hit her.
Bullshit, man.
Exactly. He did not hit her.
He makes that point very clear.
She's psychotic and makes stuff up just to control him.
Well, the interesting thing
that's clearly how the film wants you to read it. And I know you're being very clever and cracked.com about how you're reading the film.
Well, that's interesting how everyone says that she lies about him hitting her. That's not necessarily the case. She says he hit her, and it's when he was drunk. He doesn't remember it. He says he didn't do it, but he was drunk. He doesn't remember. And we see him many times pushing her, throwing her back when she's trying to get away. He attacks other people physically as well. He's clearly prone to anger. He smashes his bedroom up.
Prone to violent anger.
It's completely believable that he would hit her when he had a drink and taken the edge of control off.
But I think it's very clear that
nobody believes her. Is it any wonder that she goes to more and more desperate measures when no one around her will believe anything she says?
I don't think she does go to desperate measures. She has an affair with his mate.
Very lazy.
Yeah, she has to throw it. She has to literally throw it in his face. By the end of the film, she's basically going to him, "Look, I need you to break up with me because you won't let me leave." And she's doing everything she can to hurt him so that he'll let her go.
I don't get a sense of him as a controlling boyfriend, though.
I mean, look,
how is he not?
Well, Alan's putting all the pieces there, and it works. But I mean, it's very clear how the film wants you to read it, and that is that Johnny is, the best guy in the world and a great guy, and he's conflicted, and he's got this cartoonish villain for a girlfriend, and at the end it's a tragedy because he's driven to suicide by the manipulations of a woman, and I think maybe it says a lot about Tommy's psyche and his relationship with women and what have you, that he paints the picture that he does, intending it to be read a certain way when it can be read in other ways. But I do think it's very clear how the film wants you to look at these characters and what it's trying to portray, which is not what you're saying. And I think you know that too, Alan. I think you're being... I think
you're just blind to the truth here because you're conditioned by the male gaze. You can't step away from it. There's another scene where Mark tells Johnny a story about a girl who was caught cheating and was beaten up so badly she ended up in a hospital. And Johnny's reaction is, "What a story, Mark." He laughs. He laughs at a woman being beaten. That's your hero, is it? That's who you're. No,
don't put that on me.
It's Tommy Wiseau's hero.
Well, the film ends with Tommy Wiseau's character shooting himself. He commits suicide. And all the other characters are very upset and remorseful about driving him to his death. And that's sort of it, really.
It's a real kind of... I mean, again, it feels like a passion project and like a vanity project insofar as the guy is, like you say, driven to suicide. And then it's a real, like, see... He killed himself because you were mean to him and you didn't value his friendship.
This is the film equivalent of going, "Oh, if I killed myself, then they'd be sorry."
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a cry for help, this film. A cry for attention, I suppose. But, it's like leaving a suicide note when you have no intention of actually following through with it. It's that level of... That's how it comes across watching it. You'll all be sorry. Well... Tommy Wiseau has, as I mentioned earlier, pitched about 50 follow-ups to The Room in one form or another to various interviewers and said, "Oh, I'm working on this. This is coming out next year." None of them have ever materialised.
Do you think he ever will make a proper sequel to it? I guess these characters killed off, but then maybe that doesn't matter.
I think he's foolish not to. If he's... the thing is, it depends. It depends how... Like, the ego, again. If he is willing to just kind of take the piss out of himself and people will pay to see it.
Oh yeah,
But I don't know. I think he should, and I think he's silly not to. He could make a lot of money. How would you follow up such a dreadful film?
Well, shall I go first?
Sure.
because you kind of already mentioned one of mine, and I didn't know that this was already an idea that Tommy Wiseau himself had, but I did actually have the idea of making a Broadway musical, which would be a sort of sequel remake musical, because I would pick up the musical at the very end of The Room, where Johnny has killed himself and the police arrive in the bedroom and take all the characters into the local precinct for questioning following Johnny's suicide. Because The Room has no logical structure, I'm going to use the police interviews to give it some kind of a structure. But I occasionally want the police interviewer to break the fourth wall and talk to the audience, a bit like the criminologist in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So we would sort of retell the story of The Room, but rejig it a bit so that each character being interviewed would have all of their scenes together in one. So we'd just get Denny's story all together in one go, and then, maybe even a bit like a Rashomon sort of thing. We'd pick up different things from each story as we go along. Like we have the story with the girlfriend, and then with Greg Sestero's character, and the contradictions, and, this police investigator trying to get to the truth and all that. And Johnny would obviously appear in each segment.
Yeah.
So, for songs, I want it to be a jukebox musical, so you can help me out a bit here, because I picked out a few songs that I want in the film.
Boom, boom, shake the room.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's what we can open to. Brilliant. So I've got Never Tear Us Apart, which is obviously going to be during Johnny's big-hearted speech.
What's Never Tear Us Apart?
In Excess, right?
Yeah.
But I was thinking of Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division.
That would work better, I think.
No, there is a song where the lyrics are Never Tear Us Apart, isn't
there
there?
is.
Oh, Love Will Tear Us
Apart. Never Tear Us
Apart. I say Love Will Tear Us Apart.
Never Tear Us Apart is, it's a better song, but I think Love Will Tear Us Apart would work better in the context of a jukebox musical.
I've got The World Is Not Enough, which comes after Johnny laments that he's fed up with this world.
I'm fed up with this world.
Is not enough.
The Chicken Dance.
Oh, brilliant. Yes. I've got Lisa's main theme is Bad Romance. And Tragedy will come on at some point. So, any other songs that would... I was sort of looking at quotes from The Room and thinking, like, is there any songs that... But there aren't really any songs that match with, like, I definitely have breast cancer. Things like that. So, it's hard.
That's why you want original songs. You can have a song called She's Showing Everyone Me Underwears. or Leave Your Stupid Comments in Your Pocket.
There's got to be a dog
Hi,
song
doggy.
in there. Like,
yeah.
Who Let the Dogs
Who
Out?
Let the Dogs
How
Out?
much is that doggy in the window? Something like that.
Yeah. There must be a song about a red dress. We can definitely have that in there.
Yeah.
Like a million.
Lady in red. That's a red light. Roxanne,
you don't have to wear that dress tonight. Yeah. You don't have to put on that red light.
Lady in Red by Krista Berg. Come on, that's the obvious one.
Lady in Red, yeah.
What about over the sex scene where he's dropping rose petals on her? You could have Kissed by a Rose by Seal.
Oh, yes. That'd be good. Yeah. No, I like that.
What about when they're having sex on the staircase, Stairway to Heaven?
Oh, yeah. Oh, very good. Yes. Oh, this is good. Yeah.
Who would you cast as Lisa?
Idina Menzel. I'm just thinking of Broadway actors. Oh, Angela Lansbury is the mother. Brilliant. Yeah,
okay,
there we go.
I can see that working.
Oh, God.
We'd get an unknown for the Greg Sestero part. Or maybe we'd just get Greg Sestero.
Yeah, he'd be well up for that.
As long as that Tom Bassell was nowhere near the set, he'd be fine.
Oh God, they won't even. They can't even be in the same building. But Tommy Wiseau is the prestige part. Like who fills that role? That's like that's going to be the one that wins you the awards.
Matthew Broderick.
I'm not sure if Matthew Broderick's up to it.
Yeah, I agree. I think You want someone like Bryan Cranston who's gonna like come in and or is it like is it a comedy though? I mean, maybe you want more of a Nathan Lane. He's probably too old now. I think you want like an actor who's maybe more of a film star and TV star who's kind of like, no, I want to do some theatre, get back to my roots. So you want like a Michael Fassbender or someone like that.
Ooh, Michael Fassbender. Because you want someone who's going to go method.
Yeah.
And live as Tommy Wiseau. Can we get Daniel Day-Lewis out of retirement for this?
Oh, wouldn't that be brilliant?
I mean, if any role is going to get him out of retirement, it's Tommy Wiseau. My left eyelid.
Well, that's my pitch anyway. Can move on to one of you guys next.
Mine is sort of similarly sideways because you can't do a sequel to The Brood. I mean, the
unless he is a vampire.
Oh, yeah, now you're talking. Yeah, I thought, Johnny in the Afterlife. It's like Beetlejuice, but with Tommy Wiseau. So, I tried to come up with an idea that would just be an appropriate vehicle for Tommy Wiseau. And what I've come up with is realistically would be a sequel to This Is Spinal Tap. So you get Rob Reiner in to play Marty DeBurgi, who he's gone back to the world of music documentaries, and he's decided to make this documentary about this like aging rocker who's on tour, who will obviously be played by Tommy Wiseau. Now, basically, this is all designed to suit the talents of Tommy Wiseau because he can't act. We've established that, and I think it'll work better in an improvisational kind of atmosphere where you just sort of get good improvising actors around him who can fuel him because he won't give them anything back. So let them. So have people good at what they're doing and who can feed him so that you can get something going. But then, like, I think it would suit his personality quite well. Like, you just have him as this kind of arrogant rocker who's past his prime, but still thinks he's the bollocks. And then put him in situations where he'll get aggravated.
Can he sing?
That's not really important. But
you're going to have a few scenes of him performing on stage and, like, Stonehenge is too small and things like that.
But he's supposed to be kind of past it. Like that's part of the idea. But his look suits that of an aging rocker.
He looks like Alice Cooper.
Yeah, and his bizarre speech patterns you could put down to like drug use,
like Ozzy Osbourne.
Exactly. Yeah. But the reason I sort of thought of this was because I watched a clip on YouTube of from a TV show called La La Land. I think it's called. La La Land. It was the Mark Wootton.
Yeah.
And in this clip, Mark Wootton as one of the characters that he plays. He's kind of Sacha Baron Cohen style comedy characters that he goes into the real world and does them. And he's making a short film with Tommy Wiseau, and he's like co-directing, or he's acting in it. I think the conceit of the character.
What, Tommy Wiseau was on La La Land?
Yeah, it's onto YouTube.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I mean, I just chanced on it, but the character is like. I think the idea is he's trying to make it in Hollywood, and so he puts his money into a short film that's being directed by Tommy Wiseau, and he's acting in it. But then he's trying to take over, and he's trying to do things, and Tommy Wiseau's arguing with him and stuff like that.
He's actually like hired Tommy Wiseau to make this short film for the purposes of the La La Land. Then is that right?
Well, I presume. I don't know. Yeah, I presume so, because the way it comes across, it doesn't feel like Tommy Wiseau's not in on it, and it's all and it's all real. It feels like improvised acting. But Tommy Wiseau comes across, he's playing himself, and he comes across as a better actor in that, because I think it's not scripted, because I don't think he can remember lines. So yeah, that's my idea. The basic story would like start out as a look at an aging star trying to resurrect his career, and we're kind of laughing at him, but then we kind of learn more, we get to know his backstory, we start to understand his behaviour, and the reason behind someone, like he acts like a dick sometimes. And then perhaps the sort of emotional climax can be him reuniting with the old band mates who he'd fallen out with or something like that. That could be like your climax. But that very much, again, came from reading the book The Disaster Artist, where you do get this bigger picture of who Tommy Wiseau is, and you start to understand the reason why he acts so badly sometimes. And I wanted to use that as inspiration, really, but obviously put it into a fictional context. Christopher Guest can make a guest appearance. All right, Sol.
I have basically steered clear of The Room altogether because what can you do with it?
Yeah.
But I like the idea of the disaster artist and what they're doing there. So I was thinking more about what James Franco can do after that. So I was thinking we move on to the other best worst movie, Troll 2, which is personal favourite. We'll probably do an episode on Troll 2 at some point as well, I think. But yeah, I was just thinking, make a film about the production of Troll 2 and dramatise it. There's already a wonderful documentary, Best Worst Movie, which sort of details that film in some capacity, and it's full of fascinating characters, and I mean it's hilarious. The director and the writer and the actors, it's so funny. And that was a documentary produced by the child star of the film, who's now an adult who makes films. So yeah, my pitch is basically do a dramatization based on Troll 2, much like they're doing with The Disaster Artist. Just dig into that film. And so I've basically just got a whole load of casting here, which isn't great for anyone who's not seen Troll 2, but I know you guys haven't you? You've seen it, haven't you, Alan?
Yeah.
So I would recommend anyone who hasn't seen it, wait until we do our Troll 2 episode and then come back and listen to this again after that. And maybe watch Troll 2 if you want as well, because it is funny. So the director, Claudio Fargrasso, who is this wonderful character who is adamant that the film isn't even bad, and when people ask him what it's like to be the guy who made the worst film ever made, he goes, "Worst movie ever made. You know nothing. And just gets angry and walks off. Casting. Any ideas from you guys?
Javier Bardem.
Oh, that'd be good. I mean, I don't know if Javier Bardem can do an accent other than Spanish, but I mean, we could rewrite the part, I guess. And then we've got Rossella Drudi. I said that weirdly. Rossella Drudi, who is his wife, or was certainly his wife when they made it, and she wrote the film with him. And she's the odd Italian woman who seems to have a real chip on her shoulder about vegetarians, because there's a real anti-vegetarian current in the film. Anyone who's seen it. For her, I was thinking Laura Prepon, who you might know from Orange is the New Black.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know her.
All right, then we've got George Hardy, the dad, who is this old... Well, he's a dentist, isn't he, as we see in the documentary. But he played the dad in the film, and he's got a very kind of chiseled jawline. Any thoughts, either of you, casting?
Chiseled jawline. Brendan Fraser.
I was thinking Harrison Ford. If you reckon you could convince him to do some comedy. He did Anchorman 2.
Isn't he a bit old for it?
Maybe.
I mean...
Well, maybe Alec Baldwin.
Old, this guy looks... He kind of looks like a knackered Kevin Costner.
Yeah, I think you get like an old Hollywood great and just convince them it'll be a laugh. Right, you'll like this one, Calvin. Margot Prey, the mother, who is one of the most odd of the actors in the documentary. She's definitely got some stuff going on.
Mia Farrow?
Oh, no. I was thinking Meryl Streep.
Oh, yes.
I think she'd enjoy that, yeah.
Yeah.
But is there a part for Jennifer Tilly in this film?
There is that witch, isn't there?
Because that's the way to go.
Yeah, well, the witch, Deborah Reed, the woman who plays the witch, the obvious choice there is Helena Bonham Carter, but...
yes, of course.
I don't want to be so obvious. I was thinking maybe we get someone like Mila Jovovich and see if she can do crazy, give her an opportunity to act. Do you reckon she could handle that, Calvin? You've seen more of her work than us.
I think she could. I mean, I think she's quite great anyway. So, yeah, I think she'd be definitely up for it.
There's Danny Ewing, who people will be familiar with as the guy who shouts, "They're eating her, and then they're going to eat me too. Oh my God!" I don't know, maybe Michael Cera? He might be a bit old.
Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
Well, he's got the delivery down, certainly. And then, just fill the rest of the cast up with kids from Stranger Things in it. Maybe Bryan Cranston can be the sheriff or something.
So
Great.
Yeah.
You know what, guys? We might actually have an excuse to do Troll 2, as it looks like there is a film coming up called Goblin 2, which is a German film, but is going to star George Hardy as his character from Troll 2.
Well, there's an actual Troll film coming out. There's
Oh, really? Oh.
Troll 1, which technically speaking, Troll 2 doesn't actually have anything to do with. It's part of the Italian tradition of naming a film to look like it's a sequel to another film. It's got nothing to do with, because Italian law didn't prevent that for some reason in the 70s and 80s. It seems to have stopped being as prevalent now, so I think they might have tightened it up, but that's why there were a million films called like Evil Dead 4 and 5 and Zombie, the Italian name for Dawn of the Dead. There was Zombie 2, 3, 4, 5, and all these knockoff like cash-in films. And anyway, so Troll was made, and I mean that's a fascinating film for a number of reasons. It's a real so bad it's good film actually in its own right. And you've got a young Julia Louis-Dreyfus in there as a kind of mad wood nymph running around. Probably most of interest is the young protagonist, who is called Harry Potter. But they made this film well before J.K. Rowling wrote her book. Therefore, they have realised they have legal claim to the name Harry Potter or Harry Potter Jr., and therefore they are currently making an animated film which is due to be out, I think, next year, called something like The Rise of Harry Potter Jr. or something, which is obviously it's obviously been funded on the back of enough people seeing the name Harry Potter Jr., thinking it's a film about Harry Potter's kid, and thinking, oh yeah, we'll go see that. And so there is a new Troll film in the works. But yeah, what's next week?
It's the start of Star Wars season.
Oh shit.
Well, I'm very excited for it.
It's a 3-week Star Wars season.
And we've already covered the 3 real Star Wars films, so like, what the fuck's this going to be?
Left?
Oh, come now.
So what are we doing? We're doing the prequels in the late 90s.
Yes.
Then,
early noughties.
Then the new one.
The Ewok movie.
Rogue One, and then The Force Awakens. We're doing them in sort of chronological order.
Holiday special.
I wanted to do the holiday special, but I was poo-pooed on that, so...
Thank you for listening, and if you're a fan of The Room and Tommy Wiseau, then I recommend the book The Disaster Artist by Greg Sestero and his arch nemesis Tom Bissell. And if you're one of those modern non-reading types, then go and see the film version that will be coming out this week. We'll be going to see it, and we'll have a review up on our website, dimreturns.com, where you can also get all our old episodes and get news and all sorts of other information. If you don't like what we have to say, then keep your stupid comments in your pocket. As you just heard, next week will be the start of a 3-part Star Wars season, starting with the prequel trilogy. Face it if you dare. See you next week.